Robert Plank Show, episode 138. Bring your marriage back to life with entrepreneurs Tony and Alisa DiLorenzo. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show. Now on today's podcast, we have Tony and Alisa DiLorenzo, the founders who are a leading source for couples on sex, love, and commitment on their #1 marriage podcast, where they have a bunch of best-selling authors and hosts, and they are our best-selling authors and hosts about entrepreneurship, marriage, and authorship. Welcome to the show. How are things, guys?
Excellent, Robert. Thank you.
We're doing great today. So glad to be joining you.
Cool. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. So could you guys tell me, I know I mentioned a little bit, but can you tell me what it is that you guys do and what makes both of you different and special?
Oh my gosh. Well, Tony and I are tasked. We know our mission is to transform 1 million marriages around the world. That is something that we've discovered over the last few years. And we do that through a variety of ways. We do it through the podcast, The One Extraordinary Marriage Show. We do it through, you mentioned the books that we've written. We've written books such as the 7 Days of Sex Challenge. We talk about trust. We talk about communication. We talk about all those topics that everybody wants to talk about, but nobody is. And so we peel back all the layers for couples out there to go, you know what? You can have a conversation about this and the world isn't going to fall off its axis.
Interesting. So you guys get right to the good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, our first show that we ever did was called the 60 Days of Sex Challenge.
Nice. That's a great place to start off, right?
So let's start big or go home.
Hit the ground running. So kind of along those lines, what has you guys excited lately in this topic? And tell me something I haven't heard before.
Wow. What are we excited about lately? Man, we're excited about just impacting people's lives. As One Extraordinary Marriage has grown over the last 6.5 years, our reach has just it's just taken off. From the early days of the podcast where, we would hear from folks here in the United States. And I remember, and Alisa does too, when we heard from somebody from Alaska. And it was like, oh my gosh, we have somebody listening in Alaska. And now we have listeners in 160 countries around the world. And so right now, what gets me excited and what gets me out of bed are the folks who come, hear us, start to implement, they're intentional about their marriage and they take action, and they have these amazing testimonies. Mm-hmm. They come and they're like, you guys wouldn't believe what we did. We were listening to you share this. We picked up your book, Connect, like you did when you first met. We started asking each other questions. We started getting deep. We started being transparent with each other. And guess what? We had the best sex we've ever had in our 10 years of marriage. If that doesn't get me excited to wake up in the morning and impact more lives, I don't know what will.
Because you guys are teaching what you know, it sounds like.
Well, we are, because our marriage, the first 11 years, was really nothing to write home about.
Nope.
We made it, the fact that we're still together, and we actually, as of this recording, are just under 2 months away from our 20th wedding anniversary. And when we look back at those first 11 years that were rocked with pornography, rocked with crazy financial debt, with more zeros than I care to count about, rocked with the loss of our second child, all of these things tear marriages apart. And we found ourselves at that 11-year mark going, which way do we go?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason the very first show that we ever recorded was the 60 Days of Sex Challenge is because that's what we decided to do in hopes that something would shift in our marriage. Otherwise, we were going to end up as roommates. And as a result of that shift, our marriage, I get to tell people all the time that my marriage coming up on 20 years is better than it's ever been.
So what changed?
We got intentional.
Yeah.
We stopped taking each other for granted. We realized that this relationship between the two of us had to be the first relationship that we work on every day instead of the last relationship.
And if you want to see anything grow and flourish, you need to water it, right? If you want to see a rose plant grow, you don't just plant it and let the sun wither it away. You water it, you put fertilizer on it, you trim it, you cut it back in those seasons when it has to be cut back to see it bloom and blossom. And it's the same thing that we had to learn in our own marriage, and we teach others, is that if you want to grow, you got to do something. And Alisa and I had to do something.
That makes sense. And so am I getting the math here right? Was this 9 years ago, or was this more recent?
9 years ago.
9.
You started the podcast?
We started the podcast 6.5 years ago. We started our journey towards transforming our marriage 9 years ago. And so it was after we did that, we'd been invited to speak, to share our story. And after we did that, here we are. I'm, standing up in front of a room full. I think it was like 80 folks, give
80
or take.
couples.
And we're sharing our story and, talking about how, Tony threw out this idea that we would have sex for 60 days in a row. And, my immediate reaction the first time he proposed it was absolutely not. Like, our kids were 2 and 5 at the time. Are you kidding me? I'm covered in, baby stuff all day long and art projects. The last thing I'm going to do is have sex with you all day.
And my thought when I first heard that was, of course, it's the guy's idea.
Well, a lot of people say that. It's not always the case. But
Hey, Robert, it was the Hail Mary pass. It really was. Where we were in our marriage at that point, it was the Hail Mary pass. Like, I got to go after something that's so big, so crazy that it's either we win it or we lose it here. Mm-hmm. And that's just where I was after 11 years of marriage. Our goal is hopefully that folks who find us don't have to do the Hail Mary pass. Like, they're starting to listen, they're starting to gain wisdom and knowledge and taking action, so they don't have to get to that point in their marriage.
So, I mean, what's the secret? What's the shortcut? What's the Cliff Notes on this?
The Cliff Notes, I love that. We haven't used that phrase before, but that might show up on the One Extraordinary Marriage show.
Awesome, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. That's why we love doing interviews, because somebody always gives us a little bit more information or material for our own show. The Hail Mary, the secret sauce, is saying, you know what you did to get to the I do, what you did to get to the wedding day, you actually need to keep going and keep doing that for the next 50, 60 years. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't spend all this time like, oh, I'll talk to you for hours. Oh, I'll take you on dates. Oh, we'll plan trips together and we'll do all this kind of stuff. And then you have, the fancy dress and the big party and everybody's like, yay, kiss, kiss, kiss. And then the next day you're like, yeah, well, we've got the same last name. We're done. Right? Like, I don't have to do anything anymore. Right? Those couples that say, you know what, the wedding is just the beginning of our lives together. The wedding is where we start investing. Those are the couples that see transformation, because they're not waiting around for something else to happen. They're saying, I'm going to take responsibility for what I can do in the marriage, and that's showing up to the best of my ability every single day.
So how do you get back to that point? Like, kind of like you guys mentioned that, well, it was one thing to say that, but you guys had the kids to deal with, and I'm sure, like, your own responsibilities. So how do you do that with all the everyday stuff in the way?
Man. So honestly, it's going to depend on where you are in your marriage, right? I mean, that's one of the most difficult tasks we face, because so many people are in so many different places of their marriage, right? Some people have just grown apart. It's nothing more than life has gotten in the way and they haven't been intentional. So maybe for them, doing the 7 days of sex challenge is the best thing they could do right now. They need to reconnect, because see, the 7 days of sex challenge, everybody's like, ooh, it's sex. Right. We get it. Alisa and I, having done our 60 days of sex challenge and then 7 days of sex challenges now, it's more than just sex. It really is. It's about that emotional connection. So for some couples, that's what they need. They need to get back to basics. For other couples, man, they've gone through the ringer. They've been in the valley. They've been stuck in the valley, and they're wondering, when are we going to get out of this? Mm-hmm. And for those folks, a 7 days of sex challenge may be something that they could do, and yet it's not going to have the profound effect that it would have for the first couple. For them, they may do a 7 days of sex challenge, or maybe they would, check out our course, He Zigs, She Zags, get your communication on the same path, and parlay that with coaching with Alisa, because they need more accountability. They need somebody to come up beside them and go, are you guys doing your work? Are you guys doing what you're saying? Because Alisa will hold them to task and hold them accountable to what they said they're going to do each and every week.
So could you explain that a little bit? Like, is there a course someone can buy where it's not just the training, but Alisa will actually like follow up and make sure they do what they say they'll do? Or is that the coaching part of it?
That's the coaching part. I mean, we have a number of programs, because over the last 6.5 years, we've identified some very particular areas that we hear time and time again couples are struggling with. Communication is one of the top ones. Trust. So we created a program all wrapped around restoring trust in your marriage. Then, we know that sexual intimacy is an issue as well. So these are like the 3 big ones. And then, you have those folks that want to just do it themselves. They just want to, get plugged into a program. And then you have other folks that are like, you know what? We've tried and tried to talk ourselves through this. We've tried to do programs. We've tried to do all this kind of stuff, and we can't do it by ourselves. And, a lot of those folks have heard about us either on, podcasts like yours or even on our own show. And they're like, wait a minute, I resonate with what she's saying. Like she sounds like me. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like I tell my clients, look, I'm not perfect, right? You listen to my show for more than like 1 week, you'll hear Tony and I have, incidences where we go back and forth and we still fight over things. Mm-hmm. But what we figured out is how to shorten the challenging times in our marriage. So they're still going to happen. We're human. He's right. Not perfect. I'm not perfect. But coming alongside a couple, what I do is I give them additional resources. I give them tools and I say, you know what? I'm going to talk to you next week. So you don't just revert back to your old behavior, what hasn't been working, but I'm going to hold you accountable and we're going to keep equipping you until you have the marriage and the relationship is functioning at the level that you desire.
Interesting. So I mean, what kind of thought process goes into some of the stuff? Like you said that, there's like those three areas. So there's the communication and the trust and the sex areas. But like, how do you decide if you guys have an idea, if something should be like a podcast episode or an audio program or a book, or do you just not care about the overlap and you say that, you can restate the same things in different ways, I guess? Or like, what's the thought process with that?
That's a good question. So when it comes to the podcast, because I want to start there because that's basically like our home base, And so for anybody who's listening, you want to go check it out, go to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. You can find that on iTunes, Stitcher Radio for you Android folks. When it comes to the show, that honestly has been something we've done for 6.5 years, week in and week out. And it is our life. It is what we deal with in our own lives with kids who are growing up, with, two adults that, like Alisa said, aren't perfect. We have blow-ups, we have mess-ups, and we also have successes. So throughout the week, we're always looking for cues and thinking of like, how can we share what's going on or what we've heard, or if there's reoccurring themes from folks that we're getting emails from. Like, you get it once, you're like, okay, get it twice. Wonder what's up. Get it a third, fourth, fifth time. You better believe we're going to start doing some research, thinking about it, and then bringing it to a show. When it comes to a workshop or a course, we've found that, like Alisa said, the three main areas. So we dive deeper into those. Those are more hands-on. We do an audio and video sessions. We add cheat sheets, worksheets, so people can dive in deeper in those areas and pull it apart. So that's where that comes up. And yeah, is there going to be overlap? Sure thing. Some people will be able to listen to the podcast. All good. Other people, they need to pick up our book, 7 Days of Sex Challenge. Other people want to pick up our book, The Trust Factor. For them, they need to go a little deeper. They need to write notes in their book and dissect it and then apply it to their own marriage.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I like your thought process. It's almost like, it's like the podcast happens regardless, and then you might use some of these podcast episodes to kind of flesh out a bigger idea that ends up in a workshop or a book.
Absolutely. I mean, we are constantly interacting with folks who are telling us about their marriages. I mean, that's right. Just,
nature of the beast.
Really, people find out what we do and they're like, oh, let me tell you what's going on in my relationship, which is great. And we love having that interaction, be it with our listeners or with just people we meet, anywhere. Mm-hmm. And from that, we're able to go, okay, where are the needs? Right? We know what the needs are in our own marriage. I mean, a lot of times the shows come straight out of, oh, Tony and I had this issue this past week. And we know if we did, there's at least one other couple out there that's facing it. So let's bring these topics to the light. And then, going across all of our platforms, because we're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all over, iTunes and Stitcher and whatnot. Taking it across the platforms allows us to reach people wherever they're at. They don't just have to come and find our website. We're out there, audio, video, tweets and whatnot, because we know that if you're having a crisis in your marriage, you're looking, and we need to be where you're looking.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, be everywhere, because otherwise, I mean, they're going to find someone else if not you guys, right?
Sure.
So have you come across any of that? Have you come across like having any difficulties differentiating yourselves, or have you come across anyone else kind of doing something similar to you, or even maybe someone who's kind of trying to ride your coattails, anything like that?
No, you know what? We haven't gone into the podcasting world. When we did, we really were able to carve out our own niche. And that has helped. Sure. Have there been people who've like, hey, look what Tony and Alisa are doing, so we're going to do the same thing? Sure. Go for it, man. Honestly, if you can touch marriages, by all means, go for it. And I know a lot of folks in the marriage niche. I try to reach out to many of them. I have some good friends in them. And so we do a lot of programs together or courses, or if they're doing an online conference, we're usually speaking at them. And so, in all honesty, it's a big world. So go after it. We're going to just continue to do what we know what we do best. And we're going to just continue to reach those couples and know that we're going to reach 1 million and we're going to reach more than that before our time comes to an end.
Nice. I mean, fair enough. And yeah, and I'm scrolling through and I'm seeing you guys having all these TV appearances on all kinds of cool stuff like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are fun too, because especially here locally in San Diego, we've been featured on CW6 a few times now,
and those on ESPN Radio, and
right, yeah, and they're all so great. And for us, it's where can we reach people where they're at, right? I mean, not everybody's online, not everybody's searching because their marriage is in a tough spot. Sometimes they're just right there on CW6 and they want to get some fun, quick ideas about how to romance their spouse on Valentine's Day.
So, do you have any of those? Do you have either like just like a really common problem everyone has that everyone should be aware of that they can fix in their marriage, or do you have just some really just like fun quick tips anyone can use besides the 60 days of sex, besides the 7 days of sex, of course?
Yeah. Here's a fun one that we found, that a lot of couples, both male and female, husband and wife, have a hard time knowing how to initiate sex. It's something that we all think should just come naturally, and yet we have difficulties with it. What does that look like? For a lot of us, media has really screwed us up at times of what that looks like. A typical 30-minute sitcom, if there's a sex scene happening, would be a scantily clad woman coming in with high heels, maybe lingerie, and the guy is in the bathroom shaving and she comes up behind him. Honestly, man, I've been married almost 20 years. I cannot think of a time when Alisa has come into our bedroom or our bathroom like that. So for most of us, we don't know what initiating looks like. And so we came up with a resource on how to initiate. And if folks are interested, they can go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com/initiate, and they can get our free download there, and it will help them to understand, okay, what does this look like for you? What does this look like for me? And it gets that conversation started.
And just to add on to that, that's really where most couples need to have the resources, right? They need to know what the first step is, right? So like with this list of top 10 ways to initiate sex, tonight or today, because we talk about daytime sex a lot, it's just that first step. It's getting them over the hurdle of saying, okay, you know what, maybe we can talk about this. Just because we've never talked about it doesn't mean we can't. It just means we need to take the first step. And that's really where One Extraordinary Marriage comes through for so many people, is giving them that first step.
Well, cool. And it sounds like from hearing about that and just hearing about all the little things that you guys do that all add up to a lot, it sounds like you guys take the subject that either some people just don't want to talk about it, or some people think it's not fun. And it sounds like especially the way you guys talk, it sounds like you've taken this thing and you kind of made it fun and brought it to light again.
Absolutely. I mean, Tony and I both grew up in homes where sex wasn't talked about, where it wasn't, kind of the birds and the bees was like the one and only conversation that either one of us had with our parents, and that was about it. And we realized, there are a lot of folks out there that was their experience too. And nobody said this is, we give all of this book learning, but nobody says this is how you have to deal with a spouse. This is how you have to deal with a husband or a wife. And these are the challenges you're going to face. And, how do you talk about finances? How do you talk about sex? How do you get on the same page in regard to the kids? And we just said, you know what? We looked for it and couldn't find it. And so we said, you know what? Somebody's got to step into the space. If it's not out there and we know we need it, we're going to step into that space. And that's really how One Extraordinary Marriage started, and what it's grown into is a resource for couples literally around the world who are like, we've never had that conversation. Well, Tony and Alisa just did. Let's do it ourselves. Let's see what happens when we do it.
And that's awesome. And I think that anyone in any niche can kind of take away from that, not just in the in the save your marriage niche, but I mean, if there's something out there where you have a problem and you can't find the solution, you guys have just made the solution that you wish existed.
Exactly. And for anybody who's out there, it takes time. You know what I mean? One Extraordinary Marriage didn't grow to where we are today overnight. Everybody likes to look at us now and go, "Oh my gosh, that was an overnight success." No, it's taken hard work. It's taken, years of just learning our craft and our trade and who we serve, and continuously coming to our podcast, coming to our site, reaching new people each and every day.
So, kind of along those lines, I mean, I'm looking at the stuff that you guys have set up. I know that you guys have, like, you have the podcast, you have these courses, you have all these freebies. Do you have something like upcoming, or some kind of cool project, or some kind of cool like area you're excited to get into soon?
Right now, we're working on building out some individual group coaching programs. We've done a lot of stuff in the past where it's been targeted for both husband and wife to work on together. And what we're looking at right now, what we've come to recognize over the last probably 3 to 6 months, is that there are a lot of times that either a husband needs to work in an area, or work on himself, or a wife needs to work on herself, because the fact of the matter is that a relationship is only as healthy as the two people in the relationship. So we're in the process right now of designing some group coaching programs that'll be coming out probably September, October. We're still working on the release date for those, of just equipping husbands and wives with the tools that they need to be the best version of themselves in their marriages.
I like it. So, and mostly the husband, but not just the husband, right? I know that he's usually wrong.
No, not at
No.
all.
Okay.
My couples, they will tell you, and we hear this time and time again when I'm doing individual coaching with couples, is that, one of the things that surprises them is the fact that I'm able to just come in and really be that 30,000-foot view. It's not all his fault. It's not all her fault. It takes two people with whatever's going on in your relationship. It takes both of you to have gotten there, and it takes both of you to get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, the husband has to do all the work or the wife has to do all the work. You both have to work to get to extraordinary.
Interesting. So, I mean, I like that way of thinking, and I like all the stuff that you guys have built. And what's cool about this niche, especially that you guys are in, is that, I mean, it's like, it's not, there's always some kind of new area, right? There's always some kind of new thing that couples need to be working on. It's not just something where, someone has back pain, they take a pill, it's over with. There's always new ways to improve, I guess, right?
There are many layers. It's just a way to think about it. I mean, think of an onion. I mean, we're all so complex, and there are many layers. Some people just live on the surface all their lives. That's where they've lived, and now they're married and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't live here anymore. I need to go deeper." How do I do that? How do I communicate in my emotional intimacy with my spouse? Sexual intimacy, financial intimacy, spiritual intimacy, So there are many different areas that we come in from, and we look at it from different places and continue to just keep going around and looking at it and going, "Okay, how about this? How about that? How about this? Are you thinking about this?" And nothing is too small.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll take and we'll dissect little areas and go, did you guys think about this? And it's amazing what can happen, because that can actually have freedom for somebody. Somebody can break free of their thought process, or where they've been, or how they grew up. And that's what we just continue to go after.
That's awesome. And I think that, and what's cool about what you guys have set up is, if someone kind of has the personality of they kind of want to go all in, they could load up the truck with all your stuff. But even if someone is just kind of curious, like you said, just of solving a little problem now, they can just tune into one episode of the podcast. They can just grab one of the cheat sheets. So that's pretty cool that people can just kind of pick and choose where they want to start with you guys and how deep they want to go with you guys too.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I'm thinking about, you talk about that. We did a show on, and we have an article on it called the Ecotones Sound and Sleep Machine. And here's something that we introduced into our own marriage. And it's a sound machine that we have in our bedroom that has like 10 different sounds, and you can pick it up on Amazon for $99. But we loved it because it allowed us for us anyways, as our kids were getting older, it drowned out the sound in our room when we were having sex.
It's audio responsive, so the louder
Right.
you get, the louder it gets.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, it's a nice thing.
What'll they think of next?
Yeah.
Right. And so, you talk about just something simple. something simple as that, Robert, can honestly shift a marriage like you would not believe. And we've had testimonies after testimonies about that little machine that people were like, I had no clue. Well, Lisa and I didn't either. And we got it, we tested it, we shared it. And now there are other couples in the one family who are like, we use it all the time. Love it. There you go.
Nice. They say we've somehow lived for decades without this, and how do we even go one day without that thing, right?
That's kind of how we feel about it. Yeah.
Funny. So, kind of along those lines, along the lines of the things that you recommend and people, finding out about you and buying from you. Where can people tune into the podcast, get your videos, get your products? Where should they go to find out all that stuff?
Sure. I mean, come to our hub, guys. Oneextraordinarymarriage.com. And you'll find everything there. You'll find the articles, you'll find the podcasts. If you're on iTunes or you're on your iPhone, go to the podcast app, just type in One Extraordinary Marriage Show, subscribe right there, and you can start listening. But our store is there. You can learn more about our products, our programs, and who Alisa and I are all about.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I'm really glad that both of you, I got a 2-for-1 deal today. Both of you were able to stop by the show, and I always like kind of covering all those weird, random topics, and it was really great hearing not only about how you guys, got your start and you were able to spread this message using the internet that you wouldn't have been able to without the internet. And then the thing is that, I mean, on this show, a lot of the times we talk to, self-employed entrepreneurs. And I mean, this is great for them too, because if their marriage is in trouble, then, everything else suffers. So, I mean, a really great message you guys have. So could you tell us one last time to make sure everyone has it, that URL again?
Yeah, it's oneextraordinarymarriage.com.
Perfect. So thanks for being on the show, Tony and Alisa.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Robert.
Anytime. Hey, it's Robert Plank. Go right now to robertplank.com/iTunes and hit subscribe to make sure you never miss another episode.